Okay, for the meditation this morning, I'm going to read from Roger Teal's This Life is Joy. And I've been thinking a lot about freedom to, not freedom from. First I thought a lot about I'm getting free from all the stuff I don't like. But I also know that I need to choose freedom to, so that it's an active freedom. This includes a text from Ernest Holmes also. I invite you to ask deeply, how shall I go forth to express the greatness of my loving and healing nature? These words from Ernest Holmes can also be really helpful. We are to know that passing events cannot hinder the onward march of the soul. The temporal imperfection of the human cannot dim the eternal integrity of the divine.
I'm held in love, I'm held in peace. God is holding me. With every breath, with every step, God is holding me.
I feel such wonder at living this life, at being with this group of people who have gathered to make a service today, and of all the people with whom I come in contact. I know that we have been through plenty, and we are coming out shining brighter than ever. I'm thankful for all of the generosity that has been shown by each person. And I'm thankful for the generosity of all of us that have maintained this building and this church together. And so it is.
God is holding me. God is holding me. God is holding me. God is holding me.
Thank you, Claudia and Jackson. So this morning, our talk, we're still working on the soul's call. This morning, I named this Deep and Challenging. And I want to remind us of the monthly context of our theme, where I've read this to you before, but Carl Jung said, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens." So our soul's call is this deeply intimate, challenging, exponentially powerful, and globally beneficial work that we're invited to do daily. And I know that as we're coming out of being sheltered in place, that each one of us is facing a brand new life in a way. It's almost like we've been little chicks in the egg. I watched one on YouTube yesterday. Actually, it was a duck. That how they kept pecking and pecking on the inside, and then finally it broke open, and yet there was still more pecking to be done until they were finally able to tumble out of the egg. And that's what this little duckling did, was actually tumble out of it. And I thought, this has been an invitation to go deep and to challenge ourselves in so many ways. And so I found this little cartoon. I love this brain and heart cartoon. And you see the heart here is carrying all this past trauma. And then on top of that is everything else piled on. And then even more piled on. That butterfly lands on the top there in the third square. And then there's that minor inconvenience, and I know that one, where you trip over something or somebody says something and you just fall apart, and then the brain is going, I think you're overreacting. But yet our heart has to be paid attention to. If we had taken care of it in square one, we wouldn't be overreacting in square 4 after any minor little inconveniences, as they call it. So the heart is so important. We think our brain is the most important, and yet the heart is so important in our spiritual work, developing, looking within and finding out what's going on there, and working with ourselves to move beyond where we've been before. So, one of the things that the team that was working on this month's notes for the talk said is that if humanity is to awaken to its spiritual magnificence, which is something we used as a goal or a vision idea, and then a world that works for all, which is the new vision, our discomfort must become our guru. Individually and collectively, we must dive deeply into areas we shy away from. For instance, politics, privilege, Black Lives Matter, spiritual activism, money. I've been working on a few of these with other ministers in classes and stuff. And you know what? I thought I was pretty clear. And then I realized I'm not all that clear. And by clear, I meant no baggage. Carl Jung says there's no coming to consciousness without pain. And I don't really like pain. I'll avoid it as much as possible. But yet, to get to where we want to be, to that consciousness of pure love, that awareness of the power that's within us, we have to move through our pains. So, what we see out in the world is what we're seeing with. So if the only thing, what I realize is that if the only thing I can feel or see is pain, then pain is all I see. If all I'm feeling is pain, then pain is all I see out there. And it's been interesting to me that as I've been going through, for instance, the inclusion and diversity classes, that there has been, I feel this pain for what's happening in our world and what's happening for a certain community of people in our world, and then another community and another community. And then I realized that as I was going through this one book study we were doing, all I could see out there was this sort of thing happening. And I got it that, again, I got it that what I see out there is what I'm feeling in here, in my heart. And so perhaps today we can talk a little bit about forgiveness, because forgiveness allows us each to unburden ourselves and see the world in a new way. You know, anger begets more anger, and forgiveness and love lead to more forgiveness and love. And I know that the love is where we want to live. We really want to live in love. So I have some ideas for us. I listened to Brene Brown and another lady that I can't remember her name. Krista Tipping, the lady that does On Being. If anybody listens to NPR, she has a wonderful podcast there all the time. The two of them were talking, and these are three things that I got out of that talk. She says that anger, which is, I think, something that a lot of people are feeling in our world today, and we're seeing the evidence of it in the shootings and the riots and things like that around the world. So anger, Krista Tipping said, is a force of love. Anger is a force of love. You don't really get mad at somebody or something unless there's love there. You know, if there's not love there, you're pretty indifferent about it. So anger is a force of love, and it's also painful, and the pain is there for a reason. You know, I've mentioned before that on one of the animal shows that I saw years and years ago, the person speaking on the show said that fear turns to attack in 60 seconds in animals, that they've proven this. And of course, we're still animals. And so fear turns to attack in us, and we show it by being angry. And yet, you know, in the science mind, we know that we're whole and perfect and complete. We're everything that we want to be already. So what is that reason that the pain is there for? And my feeling is that if there's anger or if there's pain, which, you know, the two of them go together, if you're experiencing this, the universe is trying to give you a message. Your higher self is trying to give you a message. Your thinking is in the way somehow. Our thinking is in the way for living our lives the way we want to. Usually the thought that's causing the pain isn't a spiritual truth, and it doesn't lead us into the integrity of our being. And so when you're feeling pain, even when you're feeling physical pain, I remember Helen Street, my teacher, talking to somebody in our practitioner class who was experiencing a lot of physical pain, and she said, "Have you asked what the message is?" And all of us are kind of, "Huh? What do you mean?" And she said, let's say you have a pain in your elbow. Instead of going, "Oh, my elbow hurts, and focusing on the pain, be quiet and ask that pain what the message is. You will always get it. The universe always answers. So the pain is there for a reason. It's up to us to find out what the reason is. The second idea that Krista Tipping had was that anger focuses us. I thought, wow, that's true. You know, if you're mad about something, you're focused. You're pinpointed on something so directly. And in this idea that anger focuses us, we can move into that place where we realize that suffering is optional. We're going to have pain, we're going to be angry, we're going to be sad, we're going to feel all the emotions that humans are given to feel. But suffering is optional. And this is a Buddhist teaching, that pain is there, but suffering is optional. Pain is inevitable. In fact, you can stub a toe like we saw in the little cartoon. You can fall down. You could get sick. There's lots of different ways we can experience pain. But how we deal with it is up to us. So suffering in the Buddhist tradition is the illusion that we should never have pain. Think about that for a minute. Suffering is caused by the illusion that we should never have pain. So what do we do in the science of mind? We focus on the wholeness, not on the suffering. That third point she had about anger was that anger propels us to do something. To do something. So maybe what we need to do is forgive ourselves and forgive the others. And in fact, I think that forgiveness is an open door to a better life. I know that when I was going around being a victim for years and years about having abused childhood, that there was no open doors. I was stuck in this place of thinking that I was an abused child, and therefore everything in my experience proved that to me. Allowing myself to finally move into a place of forgiveness began to open the door. And it doesn't open it, it doesn't fling it open, it opens at a crack. And then sooner or later, at least in my experience, I can remember years after doing so much forgiveness work on my mother, driving with somebody. I think we were going to Palm Springs. And because my parents used to go to Palm Springs every weekend when we were kids, and I experienced a lot of suffering around that, my jaws were getting tight, my butt muscles were clenched, and I'm thinking, what is this about myself? And again, I realized that there was another level of forgiveness. And so the door opened a little bit more as I did that. And every time any button is pushed and the anger at mother button comes up, there's more forgiveness to do. And the door opens even wider. I feel like I've pretty much handled it now, or forgiven. And what helped me was beginning to look at her life and what she experienced. And as an adult, having a different understanding of things. But forgiving ourselves is even more important. Forgiving ourselves for being angry, forgiving ourselves for hurting the people that we've hurt. Forgiveness is an essential part of our healing. And my feeling is that forgiveness allows, every time we forgive, we let that door open a little bit, we're letting that great well of divine wisdom and divine love and divinity and light to well up and flow through our whole being, giving us answers that we need, making us feel that we're well, making us evolve. And in fact, the science of mind and our core concepts, we have a concept called forgiveness. It's core concept number 8. And I thought that was a very interesting number to give forgiveness, because 8 in metaphysically is the number for infinity. Forgiveness has to go on and on and on. I don't know if in the human experience we're ever going to get to a place where nothing ever happens that we don't get angry about again. I don't know if we ever get to that place where we're so divine. Gosh, a phrase just came into my mind. We're so spiritual that we're no earthly good. I don't know whether we get to a place of where there won't be anything to forgive. But as my foster mother once said, you go to bed every night and you forgive anything that happens during the day. You totally let it go. So our core concept is, in the eternal now, there can be no place for divine anger, unforgiveness, or punishment. If we perceive a need for forgiveness, this is the human condition. Human forgiveness is the process that frees us to live in the eternal now. It is the essential step before real spiritual growth can flourish. Science of Mind teaches that the ultimate goal of life is complete emancipation from all discord of every nature, and that this goal is sure to be attained by all. Well, that's good. I like that last sentence, because I just said I'm not sure there's ever a point where we get to that place where we don't experience all of our emotions. So we don't experience anger or resentment or whatever it might be. But that goal is sure to be attained by all. So I'm going to accept that. I'm going to know that that's the truth for each and every one of us. There's a wisdom in pain. There's a wisdom in all of our feelings. So if we allow ourselves to move into that place where we can forgive ourselves, ask what the message is, know that whatever it is that we need is already within us, and allow ourselves to do the forgiveness work necessary. I want you to just close your eyes for a minute and think about what's in your heart. Think about whether you have a closed off space, a space where you put things that you don't want to think about or that hurt so much. And ask yourself, how are these things still active in my life? Where am I experiencing them? Where do they show up? And if you find things like that, know that it's really important for you to do forgiveness. Now, there are so many different methods of doing forgiveness. My favorite one is from a book by Shakti Gawain, and I don't remember what the name of the book is, unfortunately, right at this moment. But what she used that Bible phrase, that piece in the Bible where, I don't even remember who it was, but somebody asked Jesus, how many times do I have to forgive my brother? And Jesus said, 70 times 7. Well, 7 is the number of completeness on the physical plane. So Shakti Gawain set up her idea, her forgiveness program was that for 7 days, you write down 70 times, I forgive. So, and hers was just, I forgive, let's say, my mother. I forgive my mother. I forgive my mother. I forgive my mother. 70 times for 7 days in a row. And if you miss a day, which I've discovered over the years, that around day 4, you feel pretty complete with everything. And so you figure, I don't need to do this anymore. Well, according to Shakti Gawain, you didn't really let go of it. And so if you miss a day, you have to start all over again. Do it 7 days consecutively. So when I was doing it, just like with recipes, I can't follow them exactly, so I had to add my own touch. So the first day I tried this, I wrote down, I forgive my mother 4, and then the first memory bubble that came up, I wrote it down. And I kept doing that for 70 times. Sometimes things were repeated, that doesn't matter. Just doing the process. And doing it for the 7 days in a row. Now you might think, how could this make a difference? Well, it does. When I did it for my mother, not long after I did it, I called my father's number. My parents were already divorced. And this woman answered, And I asked, well, who is this? And she said, said this Fran Harris. And I'm going, oh my God, Mother. And I was able to talk to her about letting go of all of this stuff that I had been holding on to. And her response was, well, you're a bigger woman than I. And I thought, well, that was weird. But I realized later that she was holding on to stuff about my father. But, I hadn't talked to that woman in like 13 years. And it seemed really interesting to me when I thought about it, that after I finished this process with the intention of clearing everything out and doing this forgiveness work from my heart and my mind, that I call my father and she's there, and I got to talk to her. The same thing happened with my father. I've told that story before. So I'm going to say to you that this week, I want you to think about dropping the anger, dropping whatever angers you might still have, whatever resentment you might still have, and turn within so that you can really feel that love of the divine. If you're angry, even if you've hidden it someplace in your heart, it's still active. And it's preventing you from experiencing all the love and all the blessings of the universe. So let go this week. I love this quote by Oprah Winfrey. True forgiveness is when you can say thank you for that experience. When I look back on my childhood, I realized that because I went through what I went through, I'm able to work with other people who are going through the same sorts of things. I'm able to have empathy for those that are in pain. I'm able to look at the other parts of my childhood, like my mother was a master at creating beauty around her. And so I appreciate that. My father is where I got my love of animals. So regardless of what I experienced, I'm grateful for those experiences because I'm strong. I'm a survivor because of them. And I have a great love of beauty and a great love of animals. True forgiveness is when you can say thank you for that experience. Dr. Holmes says, a person's suffering is not God ordained because we create our own experience as we become individualized. By individuality is meant self-choice, volition, conscious mind, personified spirit, complete freedom, and the power to back up that freedom. We cannot imagine a mechanical or unspontaneous individuality. To be real and free, individuality must be created in the image of perfection and let alone to make the great discovery for itself. You notice I put here that the emphasis was by the author. Ernest Holmes was the one that wrote these things in capital letters or in italics, so they're really important. So our suffering is not God ordained. We create our experience, and perhaps that as we're becoming individualized, as we're realizing the truth of our being, who we really are, that we need to go through these experiences to do that. All the experiences that we have had up until now, there was something good in those. We are created in the image of perfection and left alone to make the great discovery for ourselves. And I believe that this discovery process is a lifelong experience. A lifelong experience. So let yourself do the work that is necessary to do. If you discovered something in your heart that you've been holding on to, now is the time to let it go. We don't want to move into this new experience of life holding on to anything. We want to move into this new experience of openness, feeling grateful for who and what we were, are now, and will be. Holding nothing. Holding on to nothing. Except realizing that as we step out into the world again, there are so many great discoveries. So many discoveries about how powerful we are, how loving we are, and how wonderful the world is, regardless of what it was like up until now. And so I celebrate you as we move into this new experience of life. And let's say this affirmation together that Pamela Kelly wrote, and then we will treat. When I find myself dealing with life issues that bring me discomfort or pain, I find a quiet place within where I remember that I am loved, that love is all there is, and that love is equal to any issue I may face. Rather than telling God how big my difficulties are, I tell my difficulties how big my God is. All is well. So taking these words, I know the truth of them. I know that there is really only one life. That life is God's life, and that life is the life we are living right now. It is not God and us. It is God as us. God as absolutely everything. And so I declare that as we allow ourselves to keep doing our deep and challenging work, we allow ourselves to breathe deeply and realize that we are letting go of any bonds that have held us to our past. We are moving into something brand new, something that we get to co-create together, not only with the divine presence within us, but with everybody. So I declare that what we're co-creating is a universe of love, an atmosphere of love where we walk and talk and have our being, where we know in our heart of hearts that we are the beloved of God. How could God do anything but love its own self? And I know that we take that love and we spread it around the world. Wherever we have been holding anything against anyone, we now release that. And we just radiate love. That love that is absolute. That love that is unconditional. That love that is our true nature. And so I celebrate us this week as we allow ourselves to walk out into our life along this wonderful path called life. And we see all the places that we can love. And we let ourselves do it. And we are open and ready to receive all the love that returns to us. We forgive, we let go. And we open the doors to our heart to feel and express more love than ever before. So with a grateful heart, I celebrate each one of us. And I know the truth for us. We are all the one. And this is good, very good. So I release these words into divine law, knowing that we are open and ready to receive their action. And so it is.